The football world woke up to a storm today. Shedeur Sanders has finally broken his silence after weeks of rumors questioning his work ethic and football IQ. Critics claimed he doesn't study film or understand defenses. But with one message, the Colorado Buffaloes football quarterback may have just flipped the entire narrative. For weeks, a strange narrative has been floating around the football world, and it centers on one name, Shedeur Sanders. The quarterback of the Colorado Buffaloes football suddenly found himself at the center of a storm of criticism that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Rumors began spreading online claiming that Sanders doesn't study film, struggles to read defenses, and relies more on natural talent than preparation. At first, these claims sounded like typical off-season chatter, the kind of speculation that pops up when fans and analysts start debating future prospects. But this situation quickly grew beyond normal discussion. The accusations began appearing on podcasts, sports talk shows, and social media threads with thousands of viewers. Some personalities even claimed that sources around football had raised concerns about Sanders' ability to process defenses at a high level. The problem: almost none of these claims were backed by verifiable evidence. That didn't stop the narrative from spreading. In the modern sports media landscape, rumors can travel faster than facts. One comment turns into a headline. One anonymous source becomes a trending discussion. Before long, an entire storyline can form around a player without anyone actually confirming where it started. That appears to be exactly what happened here. What made the situation even more surprising is that Sanders' on-field production tells a very different story. During his time leading the offense at Colorado, he put up numbers that most quarterbacks would dream of. Moving the ball consistently, making difficult throws under pressure, and showing poise in high-stakes moments became part of his reputation. For many fans watching those performances, the idea that he doesn't understand defenses simply doesn't add up. Still, once a narrative gains momentum, it becomes difficult to slow down. Every highlight gets scrutinized. Every mistake gets magnified. Suddenly, a young quarterback isn't just being evaluated for his performance, he's being judged through the lens of a rumor that may not even be true. And that is where this story really begins. Because what started as scattered criticism slowly turned into a full-blown debate about Sanders' preparation, his football intelligence, and even his character. Supporters began pushing back, questioning the credibility of the accusations and asking a simple question: where is the proof? Now the conversation has reached a turning point. The rumors are louder than ever, the debate is growing, and the spotlight on Sanders continues to intensify. But as the noise builds, one thing is becoming clear: this situation isn't just about a quarterback anymore. It's about how narratives form, how quickly they spread, and what happens when a player finally decides to respond. The football world has been buzzing lately, and at the center of the storm is one name: Shedeur Sanders. The star quarterback of the Colorado Buffaloes football has found himself surrounded by a wave of criticism that many fans never saw coming. Over the past few weeks, rumors have been circulating across sports media and social platforms suggesting that Sanders doesn't study film enough, struggles to read defenses, and relies more on raw talent than preparation. For a quarterback trying to establish himself as one of the most promising young players in college football, those are serious accusations. What makes the situation even more confusing is how quickly these claims spread. In today's sports media landscape, it only takes one comment from a podcast, one anonymous source, or one viral post for a narrative to explode across the internet. Before long, speculation begins to feel like fact. That appears to be exactly what happened here. Certain analysts and online personalities began repeating the same criticism, questioning Sanders' football IQ and preparation habits, despite very little verifiable evidence to support those claims. For many fans, the narrative simply doesn't match what they have seen on the field. Sanders has produced impressive numbers while leading the Colorado offense, showing poise under pressure and the ability to make big plays when his team needs them most. Quarterbacks who truly struggle to read defenses rarely produce at that level consistently. That contradiction is one of the reasons the debate has become so heated. Another layer to this story is the spotlight that naturally follows Sanders everywhere he goes. Being the son of football legend and Colorado head coach Deion Sanders means that every performance, every decision, and every rumor about him receives more attention than most college players experience. Supporters argue that this intense attention has made him an easy target for criticism, while others believe it simply comes with the territory of being connected to one of the most famous names in sports. As the rumors continued to circulate, the conversation around Sanders started to shift. It was no longer just about football performance. The discussion began to focus on his character, his preparation, and whether the stories being shared were fair or even accurate. Fans started asking important questions. Where did these claims actually come from? Who is providing this information? And why are so many people repeating it without clear evidence? Now the situation has reached a critical moment. The debate has grown louder, the scrutiny has intensified, and the narrative surrounding Sanders is more controversial than ever. But the biggest twist in this story is that the quarterback himself has finally stepped into the conversation, and his response may change how people view this entire situation moving forward. For a while, Shedeur Sanders stayed quiet. As rumors about his preparation and football IQ continued to circulate online, many people wondered if he would ever respond. Critics questioned whether the Colorado Buffaloes football quarterback truly studied film the way elite quarterbacks are expected to. Others claimed he struggled to recognize defensive coverages. The noise kept growing, and with every passing day, the conversation seemed to get louder. Then suddenly, Shedeur decided to speak. It didn't come through a long interview or a heated press conference. Instead, his response appeared on social media, simple, calm, and surprisingly powerful. His first message was short but meaningful. "Thank you, God." At first glance, it seemed like a routine post, but many fans quickly realized it represented something deeper. In the middle of criticism and speculation, Shedeur chose to center himself, showing gratitude rather than frustration. But that was only the beginning. A short time later, he followed up with another message that immediately caught people's attention. He wrote that people should learn to value the opinions of those who genuinely care about them rather than the noise coming from everyone else. With that statement, Shedeur made it clear he was fully aware of what was being said about him. At the same time, he refused to let the criticism control the narrative around his career. For many supporters, that response spoke volumes. Instead of attacking critics or escalating the situation, Shedeur took a different approach. He acknowledged the noise without giving it power. His message suggested that the opinions of fans, teammates, coaches, and family members matter far more than the commentary of outsiders who may not truly understand what happens behind the scenes. The reaction online was immediate. Fans began sharing his message across social media platforms, praising the quarterback for his maturity and composure. Many people felt his response showed leadership, the kind of calm mindset that quarterbacks need when dealing with pressure both on and off the field. At the same time, his comments also reignited the debate. Supporters pointed to his performances and work ethic as evidence that the rumors about his preparation simply don't match reality. Critics, however, continued to question whether his success in college football will translate to the next level. Regardless of which side people fall on, one thing is certain: Shedeur's response changed the tone of the conversation. By finally addressing the criticism, even indirectly, he reminded everyone that behind the headlines and social media debates is a young athlete focused on improving his game. And now that he has broken his silence, the spotlight on him has only grown stronger. When people debate the criticism surrounding Shedeur Sanders, one statistic keeps coming up again and again: the numbers he produced on the field. Supporters often point to a simple question that challenges the entire narrative. If Sanders truly struggles to read defenses or study film, how did he manage to put up such impressive passing production? During his time leading the offense for the Colorado Buffaloes football, Sanders delivered a season that immediately caught the attention of college football fans. He threw for more than 4,000 yards, a milestone that only a small group of quarterbacks reach in a single season. For most programs, a quarterback hitting that mark is considered a huge achievement. It requires consistency, decision-making, and the ability to execute an offense against a wide variety of defensive schemes. That's exactly why supporters say the criticism doesn't fully make sense. Quarterbacks who struggle to read defenses rarely maintain that level of production. Defensive coordinators constantly adjust coverages, disguise blitz packages, and force quarterbacks to make fast decisions. A player who cannot recognize those patterns would usually see their numbers fall quickly once teams start exploiting those weaknesses. Instead, Sanders continued producing. Week after week, he faced heavy pressure behind an offensive line that often struggled to protect him. Despite that, he still found ways to move the ball down the field, extend plays, and deliver accurate throws in tight windows. Many fans argue that performances like that require more than just raw talent. They require awareness and the ability to process what defenses are doing in real time. Another important factor supporters mention is the constant change within the program. Sanders played under different offensive systems and coordinators during his college career. Learning a new playbook, new terminology, and new offensive concepts each season is not easy for any quarterback. Yet even with those adjustments, he continued to produce high passing totals. Of course, critics still push back. Some analysts argue that college production doesn't always guarantee success at the professional level. The speed of defenses, complexity of schemes, and overall level of competition increase dramatically when a quarterback moves to the next stage of their career. From that perspective, they believe it is still fair to question whether Sanders' skill set will translate perfectly. But that debate is exactly what has made the conversation so intense. Supporters see the 4,000-yard season as proof that Sanders understands the game far more than his critics claim. Skeptics see it as just one part of a larger evaluation process. Either way, the statistic has become one of the central talking points in the discussion surrounding Shedeur Sanders. And as long as the criticism continues, that number will likely keep resurfacing whenever fans defend the quarterback's ability to read the field and lead an offense. One of the biggest claims circulating around Shedeur Sanders isn't about his arm strength or athletic ability. Instead, the criticism focuses on something that happens far away from the stadium lights: his film study. Some voices in the football media world have suggested that Sanders doesn't spend enough time breaking down game footage or studying defensive schemes. For a quarterback, that type of accusation is serious because film study is one of the most important parts of preparing for games. Quarterbacks are often described as the coaches on the field. They are expected to recognize defensive formations, identify blitz packages, and adjust plays before the ball is even snapped. That level of awareness usually comes from hours of studying film, reviewing opponent tendencies, and learning how defenses disguise their intentions. Because of that, when rumors began spreading that Sanders didn't take film study seriously, the story quickly gained traction online. But people close to the situation have strongly pushed back against those claims. According to several individuals familiar with Sanders' routine, studying game tape is actually a major part of his preparation process. They describe long nights where the quarterback is still reviewing plays while most people have already called it a day. Film sessions reportedly stretch late into the evening, with Sanders focusing on identifying defensive patterns and understanding how opposing teams attempt to disrupt Colorado's offense. Supporters say this type of dedication is exactly what you would expect from someone trying to perform at a high level. Breaking down film allows a quarterback to see things that aren't obvious during the speed of a live game. By reviewing footage, players can study how defenses line up in certain situations, how linebackers react to motion, or how safeties shift when certain receivers move across the formation. These details can make the difference between a routine play and a game-changing moment. There have also been reports suggesting that Sanders regularly communicates with coaches while reviewing film. Conversations about defensive looks, play adjustments, and strategic ideas often continue long after official team meetings end. That type of communication is common among quarterbacks who want to fully understand the game plan and prepare for multiple defensive scenarios. Another important detail supporters mention is how technology has changed the way players study the game. Many quarterbacks now use tablets or digital playbooks that allow them to review plays anywhere, at home, on team flights, or even during travel between games. According to people familiar with Sanders' routine, he frequently uses these tools to keep studying whenever he has the opportunity. Of course, it's difficult for fans or media personalities to truly know how much time a player spends studying behind closed doors. Film study usually happens privately, away from cameras and public attention. Because of that, some of the claims being debated online may come down to speculation rather than first-hand knowledge. What is clear, however, is that the conversation surrounding Sanders' preparation has become one of the most talked-about aspects of his career. Supporters believe the rumors ignore the work he puts in daily, while critics continue questioning whether his preparation matches the expectations placed on elite quarterbacks. Until more concrete evidence appears, the debate over Shedeur Sanders' film study habits will likely remain exactly that, a debate fueled by competing narratives and limited public information. The conversation surrounding Shedeur Sanders didn't just turn into a debate about football ability. Very quickly, it evolved into something much bigger, a discussion about how sports media narratives are created and how quickly they can spread. What started as a few comments questioning Sanders' preparation soon grew into a widespread talking point across podcasts, social media platforms, and sports commentary channels. At the center of the controversy is a familiar issue in modern sports coverage: the use of anonymous sources. Several personalities discussing Sanders claimed they had heard concerns from people around football or from unnamed insiders who supposedly questioned his film study habits or ability to read defenses. Statements like these can sound convincing to an audience, especially when delivered confidently on a large platform. But the problem is that anonymous claims are difficult for fans to verify. Because of that, many supporters of Sanders began pushing back against the narrative. They asked a simple but important question: where exactly is this information coming from? Without a clear source, critics argued that the claims were little more than speculation repeated often enough to feel like fact. In the age of digital media, repetition can give rumors a sense of credibility, even when the original information isn't confirmed. This is where the controversy around the media coverage truly intensified. Some fans and commentators started accusing certain creators of prioritizing engagement over accuracy. Dramatic claims generate clicks, views, and discussion, and in the fast-paced world of online content, attention often equals success. But critics of that approach argue that spreading unverified stories about an athlete's character or work ethic can have real consequences. Athletes like Sanders already live under an intense spotlight. Every game performance is analyzed, every decision is debated, and every mistake becomes part of a larger conversation about their future. When rumors about preparation or attitude enter that discussion, the impact can go beyond normal sports criticism. Questions about work ethic can influence how fans, analysts, and even professional scouts evaluate a player. Supporters of Sanders believe that is exactly why accuracy matters so much in these discussions. They argue that strong opinions about a player's performance are fair, that is part of sports debate. But presenting unverified claims as inside information crosses a different line. For them, the Sanders situation has become an example of how quickly narratives can grow in the modern sports media environment. Of course, defenders of sports commentary see the situation differently. They argue that speculation and analysis are normal parts of discussing athletes and projecting their future careers. Media personalities often gather information from various conversations within the football world, even if those sources remain unnamed. From that perspective, discussing concerns about a player is simply part of evaluating prospects. The disagreement between those two viewpoints is what has made this story so fascinating. It is no longer just about a quarterback and his preparation. Instead, it has turned into a larger conversation about credibility, responsibility, and the role of media in shaping public perception. For many observers, the debate around Shedeur Sanders highlights a reality of modern sports culture. In an era driven by instant reactions and viral clips, narratives can form quickly and take on a life of their own. Whether those narratives are accurate or exaggerated often becomes the very question that fans and analysts continue arguing about. As the debate surrounding Shedeur Sanders continued to grow, another powerful voice entered the conversation: his father and head coach, Deion Sanders. Known to fans around the world as Coach Prime, Deion has never been someone who avoids controversy. Throughout his legendary football career and coaching journey, he has built a reputation for speaking directly and defending the people around him. So when criticism aimed at his son began spreading across sports media, many people wondered if he would eventually respond. It didn't take long for that response to arrive. Before Shedeur even addressed the situation himself, Coach Prime made it clear that he was aware of the narrative circulating about his son. For Deion Sanders, the issue wasn't simply about a quarterback being criticized for his performance. In his view, the discussion had crossed into something more personal, questioning Shedeur's preparation, work ethic, and dedication to the game. From Coach Prime's perspective, those accusations didn't match the reality he sees every day. As both a father and a coach, Deion has a unique vantage point when it comes to understanding how Shedeur approaches football. He has watched his son grow up around the sport, studying the game and developing the mindset required to play quarterback at a high level. Because of that, the claims that Shedeur doesn't study film or understand defenses struck him as particularly frustrating. Deion Sanders has always been vocal about the importance of preparation. During his own Hall of Fame career, he became famous not only for his athletic ability, but also for the confidence and discipline he brought to the field. Those same values, he believes, are part of the culture he has tried to establish within the Colorado Buffaloes football program. When he addressed the criticism surrounding Shedeur, Coach Prime emphasized that people often judge athletes without truly seeing the work that happens behind the scenes. The hours spent studying film, reviewing plays with coaches, and preparing for opponents rarely appear in highlight reels or television broadcasts. Yet those quiet moments of preparation are often what separate successful players from everyone else. Another reason Deion chose to speak up is the intense spotlight that follows his family. Because of his legendary status in football, everything connected to the Sanders name tends to receive extra attention. Supporters argue that this visibility has made Shedeur a frequent target for criticism. Some believe that the expectations placed on him are higher simply because of who his father is. Coach Prime understands that reality better than anyone. Throughout his career, he experienced the same level of scrutiny, with critics often questioning his personality, confidence, or style. Over time, he learned how to use that attention as motivation rather than allowing it to become a distraction. That mindset is something he has tried to pass on to his son. At the same time, Deion Sanders has made it clear that he will not remain silent if he believes his family is being unfairly portrayed. For him, defending Shedeur isn't just about protecting a player on his team, it's about standing up for someone he knows personally and watching out for the reputation of his family. His comments quickly energized fans and supporters of the Colorado program. Many saw his response as a sign that the Sanders family was united in pushing back against the criticism. It also reinforced a message that had been building throughout the debate. The people closest to Shedeur strongly believe that the rumors about his preparation simply do not reflect reality. With Coach Prime stepping into the conversation and Shedeur later sharing his own message, the narrative surrounding the young quarterback began to shift. What once looked like a one-sided criticism had turned into a broader discussion involving family loyalty, media narratives, and the pressure that comes with carrying one of the most recognizable names in football. As the debate around Shedeur Sanders continued to dominate sports conversations, something interesting began happening across social media and fan communities. What started as criticism from certain analysts quickly turned into a wave of support from fans who felt the narrative surrounding the Colorado Buffaloes football quarterback was being pushed too far. Almost immediately after the rumors about his preparation and film study began circulating, supporters started pushing back. On platforms like X, YouTube, and sports forums, fans began sharing clips of Sanders' performances, highlighting the moments where he showed calm decision-making, quick reads, and the ability to adjust under pressure. For many people watching those clips, the accusations that he couldn't read defenses simply didn't match what they had seen on the field. One of the biggest reasons fans rallied around Sanders is the journey they've watched him take over the past few years. When he followed his father, Deion Sanders, during the transformation of the Colorado program, expectations immediately skyrocketed. The spotlight on the team grew almost overnight, and every game suddenly carried national attention. Supporters felt that Sanders handled that pressure remarkably well, stepping into a leadership role while the program itself was undergoing massive changes. Fans also pointed out the circumstances he played under. During several games, Sanders was forced to deal with heavy defensive pressure due to protection issues along the offensive line. Despite that, he consistently stayed composed, kept plays alive, and delivered accurate passes even when defenders were closing in. Many supporters argue that quarterbacks who truly struggle to read defenses rarely maintain that kind of composure in chaotic situations. Another factor driving the fan support is the way Sanders carries himself publicly. Throughout the criticism, he avoided engaging in heated back-and-forth arguments online. Instead, his responses remained calm and measured, which many supporters interpreted as maturity. When he eventually posted messages encouraging people to value the opinions of those who truly care about them, fans viewed it as a powerful statement about ignoring negativity and staying focused on personal growth. Supporters also believe that some of the criticism aimed at Sanders is connected to the massive attention surrounding the Sanders family name. Being the son of one of football's most famous figures automatically places him under a microscope. Every throw, every interview, and every rumor becomes part of a larger national conversation. Some fans feel that this intense spotlight has made him an easy target for exaggerated criticism. Because of that perception, many supporters began actively defending him in online discussions. Comment sections filled with fans asking critics to provide proof for the claims about his preparation habits. Others pointed out his statistics, leadership qualities, and work ethic as evidence that the rumors didn't add up. In many cases, the debate turned into long threads where fans analyzed game footage and compared Sanders' performances with other quarterbacks. At the same time, the fan support hasn't been completely one-sided. Some football followers believe the scrutiny is simply part of being a high-profile quarterback with professional aspirations. They argue that every top prospect faces intense evaluation and that public debates about strengths and weaknesses are unavoidable in modern sports culture. Even with those differing viewpoints, the overall reaction from the fan base has been clear. Many people are willing to stand behind Shedeur Sanders while the criticism continues. Supporters have shown that they are not just passive observers of the conversation. They are actively participating in shaping the narrative, defending the player they believe has earned respect through his performance and dedication. In many ways, the rallying support from fans highlights an important reality about modern sports. Athletes are no longer judged only by analysts and commentators. Their reputations are also shaped by millions of fans who analyze, debate, and defend them in real time across the internet. For Shedeur Sanders, that wave of support has become one of the most powerful responses to the criticism surrounding him. And as the season approaches and the spotlight grows even brighter, those fans will likely continue watching closely, ready to celebrate every success and push back against every doubt. As the conversation around Shedeur Sanders continues to grow, a bigger question has started to emerge, one that goes far beyond a single quarterback or a single football program. The debate surrounding the Colorado Buffaloes football star has become a perfect example of how modern sports narratives are created, amplified, and sometimes distorted in the digital age. In today's media landscape, information moves faster than ever before. A single comment from a podcast, a short clip from a sports show, or even a vague statement from an unnamed source can quickly spread across the internet. Within hours, thousands of fans are discussing it, sharing it, and reacting to it as if it were established fact. By the time the original context is examined, the narrative may already be deeply embedded in public perception. This is exactly what makes situations like the one involving Shedeur Sanders so complicated. When a claim begins circulating, especially one that questions a player's work ethic or football intelligence, it can take on a life of its own. People repeat it, analyze it, and debate it. Soon, the discussion becomes less about verifying whether the claim is true and more about reacting to the idea itself. In other words, the narrative becomes the story. Sports media has always included strong opinions and heated debates. Analysts break down games, compare players, and speculate about future success all the time. That kind of discussion is part of what makes sports culture exciting. But the rise of digital platforms has changed the scale and speed of those conversations dramatically. A take that once might have reached a small television audience can now reach millions of viewers instantly. For young athletes like Sanders, that level of exposure creates both opportunity and pressure. On one hand, the attention brings national recognition and helps build a player's brand. On the other hand, it means every rumor, every criticism, and every moment of doubt can spread across the sports world within minutes. Suddenly, an athlete isn't just competing on the field, they are also navigating a constant stream of public evaluation. The situation becomes even more intense when the athlete already carries a famous name. As the son of legendary football figure Deion Sanders, Shedeur has been in the spotlight for much of his football career. That connection naturally draws extra attention from fans, analysts, and media outlets. Every performance is analyzed more closely, and every rumor becomes a bigger headline. Because of that spotlight, the conversation around Shedeur has turned into something larger than a simple evaluation of his skills. It has become a reflection of how quickly public perception can shift in modern sports culture. One week, a player might be praised as an emerging star. The next week, a new narrative appears that raises doubts about their future. Another important element in this situation is the role fans now play in shaping those narratives. In previous generations, sports discussions were mostly driven by television networks, newspapers, and professional analysts. Today, millions of fans actively participate in the conversation through social media platforms, comment sections, and video content. These fans analyze statistics, share highlights, and challenge opinions in real time. That dynamic means public perception is no longer controlled by a small group of voices. Instead, it is shaped by an ongoing conversation between media personalities, former players, analysts, and everyday fans. Sometimes that conversation leads to thoughtful debate. Other times, it creates confusion when multiple versions of the same story begin circulating at once. For Shedeur Sanders, the result has been a whirlwind of opinions, speculation, and passionate support. Some critics remain skeptical about certain aspects of his game. Meanwhile, supporters continue pointing to his production, leadership, and resilience as evidence that the criticism is overblown. In many ways, this entire situation highlights a new reality for modern athletes. Success on the field is only part of the story. The narrative surrounding a player, how they are discussed, analyzed, and portrayed, can become just as influential as their actual performance. And that may be the biggest lesson from the debate surrounding Shedeur Sanders. In today's sports world, the conversation around an athlete can grow just as quickly as their achievements. The real challenge is learning how to navigate that conversation while staying focused on the game itself. As the conversation surrounding Shedeur Sanders continues to evolve, one thing has become increasingly clear. This story was never just about one rumor or one criticism. What began as speculation about film study and football IQ slowly grew into a much larger debate about narratives, accountability, and the pressure that comes with being one of the most talked about young quarterbacks in the game. Throughout the entire situation, Sanders has found himself at the center of a storm that many athletes experience in the modern sports world. In today's media environment, a single comment can turn into a headline, a rumor can turn into a viral debate, and a narrative can form before all the facts are even known. For a player performing on one of the biggest stages in college football, that kind of attention is almost impossible to avoid. But what makes this situation particularly interesting is the way Sanders chose to respond to it. Instead of launching into long explanations or heated arguments, he took a more composed approach. His messages focused on gratitude and perspective, reminding people to value the voices that genuinely care rather than getting lost in the endless noise of public opinion. In many ways, that response said more than any lengthy statement could have. It also revealed something important about the mindset required to succeed at the highest levels of sports. Quarterbacks are constantly under pressure, not only from opposing defenses but also from the expectations placed on them by fans, coaches, and media. Learning how to handle criticism without allowing it to derail focus is a skill that every elite player must eventually develop. At the same time, the reaction from supporters shows how powerful fan communities have become in shaping the conversation around athletes. Across social media platforms, thousands of fans stepped in to defend Sanders, sharing highlights, statistics, and personal opinions about his work ethic and leadership. Their voices helped balance a narrative that many believed had become unfairly one-sided. The support from those closest to him has also played a major role. His father and head coach, Deion Sanders, made it clear that the Sanders family is not afraid to push back when they feel criticism crosses the line. That unity has sent a strong message. While outside voices may debate and speculate, the people who know Shedeur best remain confident in his preparation and commitment to the game. Looking ahead, the most important response will ultimately happen where it always does in sports, on the field. Football has a way of settling debates in the most direct way possible. When the lights come on, the ball is snapped and the quarterback takes control of the offense, opinions and speculation take a back seat to performance. For Sanders, every game represents another opportunity to show the kind of player he is becoming. Each drive, each decision, and each big moment will continue shaping how analysts and fans view his future. In that sense, the conversation surrounding him is far from over. If anything, it is likely only the beginning of a career that will remain under the microscope for years to come. What this entire situation ultimately highlights is the complicated relationship between athletes, media, and public perception. Stories can grow quickly, narratives can shift overnight, and reputations can be debated by millions of people who are watching from afar. Navigating that reality requires not just talent but also resilience and perspective. And that may be the real takeaway from everything that has happened. Through all the criticism, speculation, and debate, Shedeur Sanders has continued focusing on the same goal he has always had: improving his game and preparing for the challenges ahead. The noise will come and go, opinions will rise and fall. But when the next season arrives and the spotlight returns to the field, the only thing that will truly matter is what happens when the ball is in his hands.